Thank you. Great. And our third finalist is in Bach, right?
Yes.
So maybe you can hang around for a few minutes, then.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, lovely. Tell me a little bit of the same question, sort of where is this in preparation?
Well, I'm playing it in a recital on the 31st, so
Okay.
I can play through the whole first movement, and that's all I'm playing in the middle of the cadenza.
Nice.
I'm working on memorization.
Good. Yeah, you seem comfortable with it. How do you hope to grow in the next couple of weeks?
Next couple of weeks, I think just like solidifying the phrasing, especially with the accompaniment, because we just started playing with this, and so like figuring how it balances, and
Yeah.
I think more dynamic like the 16th notes.
Okay. Yeah. So I have similar thoughts, and maybe worth spending a little bit of time with that. I was thinking about that as well on the way over. That Dr. Weaver isn't here; will be here, I guess, later today. So I give you three permission to put your heads together and come up with the most outlandish thing that I could have told you, and see if you can, convince her that. All right. So what does it mean to you that you're working on phrasing? You mentioned piano. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I know like on 16th notes, I tend to rush and then maybe not pay attention to like how the line is moving, and
Right.
I'm just getting from the beginning to the end
Right.
of this passages. But
Yeah. And so for me, this movement is all about exactly what we're describing. Phrasing, and of course phrasing happens on so many levels, right? There's the beginning of the piece to the end, or maybe even a full concert where we have 3 or 4, and we've thought about the scope and the way that we can tell a story. And we'll shrink it down to a single note. But I think where this piece, I won't say shines, but where it has so much to offer and so much to play with is in these 2, 3, 4 bars at a time. And especially since this is maybe a foible for me as a violinist, but I find it much more easy to make a cohesive shape with dynamics, which is mostly how I make shape, when I'm playing 16th notes. If I wanted you to follow along in a beautiful open A, maybe I could give you some shape there, but if I was playing 16th notes, even just an open string, there's a little bit of a story there with a not very good ending, right? It kind of petered off at the end, right? And that relates actually, how you end your phrases is a little careless in the sense of, yeah. Okay, so you know about that already. Great. So it turns out I'm just going to tell you to do what you're already working on, and you'll be all set. So let's take one of these phrases, because I think there's so much fertile ground. Okay, how about this guy here? When you read a book or tell a story, how many high points are there?
usually one.
Yeah, exactly. We are not equipped as musicians or as audiences to hear a beautiful, expressive climax every other note, right? So we kind of we pick a phrase, we give maybe 1 high point or maybe 2. Play this slowly for me, or maybe even take a second to look at it and figure out what are you going to do to make it more than just playing some scrubby 16th notes.
Starting on the F sharp.
Yeah, just that 2 bars there or so. So you just play it. Can you use words to tell me what your plan is there?
Well, it doesn't really go up as far as following the line that way. So maybe just going back to that F sharp would be the pinnacle, and then sort of winding down.
Okay, so it's getting less. Okay. No, it's okay. If you can convince me. Okay. So let's hear that. Let's hear a real. We'll make it a sort of a diminuendo over the course of that, and you maybe do want to start with the. Since that's an extension of whatever thought is happening there. And let's go a little under tempo. You can jump in if you want, but autumn, daga, 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 daga. heard that time was that you really felt the kind of the imbalance of that G, this pitch, and we're extending this, and you landed on that D, and then you sort of improvised a different sort of phrasing for the next 8 notes. And so I think it worked a little bit better, but I would encourage you to actually be a little more clear with yourself. Sometimes, especially when we're sort of easygoing musicians, and just watching you play, I get the sense that that's the case. The violin looks like, yeah, like it's working, it's playing. I get the sense, and I'll just put this on me, that if I just feel musical, then a wonderful line is going to come out that everyone's going to get, even if I don't know what it's going to be. And sometimes that's the case. But when we're prepping for a recital or we're playing some Mozart, or sometimes it's really great to treat the audience and ourselves as if we're a little bit dumber than that, and we want some really clear thing that we're going to hand over to them, so we're not always just kind of up and down as we feel. I might go the opposite way. I might head for this G there, though you don't have to do that. And my goal, you saw me give this weird mime for you, where I have this image in my head of like a garden hose, one of those wheels, right, that has the hose wrapped around it. And what happens? First you go and someone's asked you to water the garden, and so you're pulling and nothing's happening. And then you start tugging too hard, and all of a sudden the spool like unwinds on itself, right? And so there's this kind of medium amount of tension that is going to get the hose to come off the wheel. Or maybe you've got a piece of silly putty and I've got it too. We can pull too fast and it'll break, too slow and it'll puddle into the ground in the middle, but there's this kind of like tension, and you want that musically. And a lot of times we can do that by connecting notes, literally bow in the string, a kind of détaché, and then giving some slow directional motion with dynamics. And so I think you could stand to approach that spot, and a lot of them like it, with a simpler idea, and one where you're really thinking, am I clearly communicating this, and am I using the tools as well of like the notes leading one to the next, so that I can keep the musical tension going. Try it my way once. You can never do it again my way later. That's fine.
So growing into that.
Yeah, exactly. See how long you can keep me on the hook there. Yeah, nice, especially the end there. I thought that worked. Okay, let's take the same idea a few other places. Let's go from the top. All right, with piano. Pause right there. This could just be a trumpet fanfare, and that's fine. Could it also have some direction? Especially those last few notes, rather than, how about, so I earned that last long note a little bit. Try again. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's pretty good. This was a little bit of a rough landing, right? But that's okay. Same thing again, and let's keep going this time. phrase. And I don't think you should be afraid to come down if you're planning to, if you're planning to grow or something. We only have a certain dynamic range to work with, right? And so it's really relative, the dynamic we're giving off. And so if you wanted to go, right, so that you could grow and really arrive. And then this is really the arrival point, isn't it? This is one of the spots where you're like, you're thinking about lunch all of a sudden, right? So you have to listen through to the end of the phrase, and you have to plan for it. Anything else in here that you're really dying to play for me? I would be shocked if you said yes, but I want to give you the option. So let's take just 30 seconds to back up, maybe zoom out a little bit here. Talking about phrasing, but phrasing and being musical are just words, and so sometimes we have to say, wow, like that doesn't actually mean that much to me, even though I kind of know what I want. And so I think to think about phrasing for these next couple weeks as you continue preparing this, be really clear with yourself, both about the literal high point, low point of each phrase, and also about how physically you're going to do it on the violin or on any instrument, right? It's not just intention. Ultimately, it's the sounds we make that communicate this. And then please listen to those final notes as well. Because it's such a shame to hear a really beautiful phrase at the very end, the person like sort of just, they shut the door and they storm out or something like that. Great, really lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.